This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast. Excited to have everybody along with us this evening, number 37 on deck here at the North Park building at Academy Square. Jason Oldfield making the long trip in to be part of us. I know this is one that you didn't want to miss either.
I did not want to miss this one. This should be a good show with Kathy. Of course, like a lot of our guests, probably not going to have enough time in an hour, but we'll see what we can do.
We'll certainly try to make it happen. We've got the one and only Kathy Fisher, the Dragoness, joining us on this episode, and you'll probably hear a couple cars making passes in the background. She's actually at the track. There's some test sessions that they're taking part in this weekend, but Kathy making some time for us. We appreciate it a ton. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thank you so much for having me on, and this is going to be fun. It's a nice little break after setting up the pit all day.
I can only imagine that setting up a pit for the first time of the year, there's no routine to it anymore, right? It's all new for the first time again for the following season.
Absolutely, and we have a new crew guy with us this year, so it's his first time setting everything up. We've gone through everything, and you try to put everything in certain spots, and it's like, now where was that again? And that type of thing. But no, it's all set up, and the car's out. We'll be ready to rock and roll tomorrow morning for the first qualifying session here at the Lot Motorsports Park for the PDRA East Coast Spring Nationals. We're so excited to get back out on the track.
We went through the same problems when we were getting Jason broke into coming into the studio on a regular basis. We had to tell him not to mess with microphones and everything. It's completely relatable.
Oh, it happens sometimes. It happens.
Now, Kathy, when you and I had talked a couple of weeks ago about coming on the show, you had mentioned at the time that you were going to be testing this weekend. But when we chatted this morning, you said no testing. We're just on our way to the track now. So what happened?
Well, we planned on leaving yesterday morning and pulling out. Everything was loaded, ready to go at 8 a.m. And Mother Nature has just been so weird in our neck of the woods in Ohio and a lot of other places. Here we had snow, we had snow, whatever it was, earlier in the week on Monday, and then Tuesday we had, big storms come in. Wednesday morning, once that system passed through, we had, wind advisories and stuff, but it was gusting 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Okay. And
we just didn't really want to be in a high-profile vehicle with our toter home and our, stacker trailer out and that kind of stuff. And we, my husband and I, we rate trips based on how many times we're going to get divorced between here and home. So this was at least going to be a one divorce trip anyway, because it was already going to be like almost 11 hours with the fuel stops.
Right.
We didn't want to add any to that for the first trip of the year.
I have to say I don't blame you. We had the same wind advisories coming through yesterday, and I know yesterday morning I was driving from Rochester into Buffalo, and even in my little Traverse, it was I was getting blown around quite a bit, and I was thinking to myself, I'm really glad that I'm not driving the rig today. So, yeah, I think that was probably a good decision.
Yeah, and it stinks because we had some things that we wanted to try, mainly for our PDRA events this year, and okay, fine, we didn't get a chance to try them. It's not that big of a deal, so we'll try at another time. But the weather was going to be really good today, as it was. It was gorgeous here. The temperatures are really cool. The humidity's super low. The track is nice and tight, and it would have been interesting to see if what we wanted to try was going to step it up a little bit.
Right. So, again, talking with Chris quickly, there's no way that we're going to be able to cover everything we want to cover in the next 55 minutes. So, I think overall, maybe we should probably just stick with kind of, finishing up last year and, what's new this year. So last year, I think you finished third overall in PDRA Top Dragster. Is that right?
Yes, I did, and which was a step up from the year before. Unfortunately, you're only a couple of rounds behind second. The championship was sewed up pretty quick. Matt did just a great job last year, but when you're so close to at least finishing second, you look back at certain races going, man, that 002 red, or man, this or whatever, and that's all it would have taken just to move it up a little bit. But overall, I mean, hey, we still moved up, and there was nothing to hang our heads about.
Yeah. And you won. Was it Indy that you won last year?
Yes. Yep. It was Indy. It was the one that I think we got back to the pit after the Winter Circle celebration about 2:30 in the morning.
Which I'm sure you've had a few of those over the course of your racing career, which is, I don't want to make you feel old, but long and storied for sure.
But never enough. There's never enough, but you appreciate every single one of them, and it was just awesome. I mean, I've never won anything at that track.
Yeah.
So to win the first PDRA race there, now they're not going back there this year. It made it even extra special.
Yeah, I didn't realize that PDRA was not going back to Indy this year.
No, they will be in Columbus this year, and they are going back to Martin, Michigan. So those would be considered our two home PDRA races for 2018.
Yeah, that's nice. So what did I guess what's new for 2018 compared to 2017? Is that the same car?
Yes, the car is the same. The combination is all of the same. It's still the Ohio crankshaft 547 big block Chevy with the blow-through carb. We changed last year from the F2 to the F3R 121. So this will be our second full season with that ProCharger.
Okay.
We there's little things here and there that are different, but nothing major.
Yeah.
We do have some new marketing partners this year, which we're excited about that. But the car itself, mechanically and parts-wise, is pretty much the same. So it's nice coming into the season, especially without testing today, that we already have what we consider a really good handle on what's sitting there. I mean, she should be happy.
Right.
I want to jump in and just pick up on something that Kathy had mentioned with that blow-through carburetor. We were talking about that before the show. What type of learning curve is there on that setup? It's a little bit different than your traditional supercharger that you might be accustomed to. It's a little bit different in terms of the configuration, how it takes in air, what it does with the air once it gets in there. Was there a large learning curve with that?
It was a learning curve for us because we hadn't worked with carburetors a lot in general. We had always been mechanical injection with our toilets and our terminators and that type of thing for many years. So when we went from that to this, it was just like starting all over again. But Stan at Ohio Crankshaft obviously knows this stuff in his sleep. Right. So he was a huge help. And we started with the ProCharger program with Kevin at the end of 2011. So we started with a ProCharger in 2012. There wasn't really a lot of people to talk to about any of this stuff, so it was just trial and error and give her as much fuel as you can.
Well, that does make sense. It's one of those things that a carburetor has one job. It's supposed to mix fuel with air, and then it makes power. And the more
That's right. And we just learned little things as we went along, and it really wasn't that bad of a learning curve as I look back on it. Obviously, I wasn't running the top Dragster at the time, so I was a little more concentrated on my Supercom Quick Rod car when Kevin was first doing all of this stuff. But we documented a lot of it, with that old Married with Dragsters online reality thing that we did. Right. And it's fun to go back and look at some of this stuff. Oh, that's when we learned that. Oh, that's when we screwed that up. Oh, okay.
So I guess I didn't realize that you've been running a ProCharger for that long.
We were not the first by any means, but there were only a handful of people who were really getting into it back then. So there wasn't really a lot of people to share information with.
Right.
And it wasn't that people were being stingy with their info, but they'd worked hard on it. So, there just wasn't a lot of help back and forth at that point in time.
Right. Now, I guess what is the major advantage of the ProCharger over, let's call it just a standard root-style supercharger?
Well, you're definitely not building the heat like you do in the motor because, we're letting off the boost and all that stuff. You don't have all the heat building on top of the motor.
Okay.
And some of these questions, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I know a lot about a little about a lot and not a lot about any one thing, so I don't want to lead anybody
sure.
wrong. But But that's one of our main reasons for it. The maintenance on this is relatively low. I mean, you still got to stay on top of things and, running your valves. It's still a blown motor.
Yep.
Changing the oil, all of this stuff. But the maintenance just isn't there like it would be, say, with a regular blower.
Sure. Okay, you think about it from a Sportsman racing standpoint, those are definitely nice things. I mean,
absolutely. And there are many people now. We don't run a cooling system. We don't have a radiator. We don't have water in the block, anything like that. So obviously we're towing the vehicle all the time. But there are so many that they, hey, we're bracket racing, but there's people that have these on their cars. They drive them up the lanes. They drive them back. It's awesome.
No water in the block even.
No, I mean, we kind of consider which the car is actually the Dragoness. She's a Dragoness. We consider the Dragoness a mini top alcohol car.
Okay.
So, yeah, no water, no nothing. Plus, it saves on weight.
Right. And Chris and I were talking, briefly before we went on the air. We were watching some of the videos of you making passes, and I think in one video you went 388 at, was it
188?
188 or something like that. And the question,
yes.
Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the question came up. It's like, well, how fast can the Dragster actually go? Now, I know on top Dragster you can't dial, at least in a quarter, you can't dial faster than 6 flat, but I don't know how it is in PDRA. In PDRA, can you go as fast as you want in the 8th?
No, you no, you cannot. And it's the lowest you can dial is 366.
Okay.
In the 8th mile, the quickest we have gone, which was actually at this track, at the fall or the second race of the year for the PDRA last year, was 378.3.
Okay.
And we still were not number one qualifier. And that's not what we're really shooting for. We definitely want to stay, quick.
Right.
But it's all about doing it consistently and being able to trust that dial.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as it is still an ET race, and it's a really fast ET race, but it is still an ET race, and going out there and rotating the earth but not being able to repeat it's not going to do you any good, right?
Oh, boy, you got that exactly right. But, and the one thing, we try to qualify as high as we can in PDRA because there are qualifying points.
Okay.
And so that does matter. It's nice to stay in the top half of the field. We're not shooting for number one. In NHRA, you don't have the qualifying points, and it doesn't matter if you qualify 32nd. Yeah, you're not going to get lane choice right away, but hey, you can still be number one on Sunday.
Right, that's right. So they do lane choice by higher qualifier then?
They do for the very first, for round one, and then after that, it's whoever had the quicker ET.
Sure. Yep.
So most of the time it doesn't really matter with the lane choice. The PDRA really does a nice job with their track prep. I mean, it's fun to have it, but you can't let it, get in your head.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So the 366, does that translate to a 6 flat? That seems...
I know, and that's kind of, I scratch my head a little bit at it too, but that's what it is. I mean, but if you look at, everybody's combination is so different. For an example, we hit it pretty hard down low. We don't have, in a quarter mile, we don't have the mile an hour that some of these other people do. It's just when you're bringing the timing in, how much you're doing, whatever. So we have a pretty good 8th mile setup. We still can run in the 5s if we wanted to, but we're even going to back it off a little bit for NHRA this year. I don't want to be flirting with the 6 flat.
Right.
I just don't. It bit me in the butt last year at Norwalk, and we couldn't dial the car. So it's the 366 is kind of weird to me with the 6 flat thing, but somebody came up with it.
Yeah.
So you were saying it was tough to dial the car when you had the 6 flat number in it. What was making the challenges to that?
Norwalk last year at the national event, the weather was mine shaft times 10, and it just was. And on Sunday, when we were going rounds, we still had a lot of heat in the motor, so it's wanting to run hard. The air is great, and I try to dial honest, And especially when you're doing almost 230 miles an hour, you don't want to be doing stupid games at the top end. So I'm 6 flat, and on the one pass I ran 598.3, but the other guy broke out more than I did. In the final, the car was on a high 594 pass. I did the best I could, and I broke out 5 thou. So, in my first NHRA National, that final round in any class. So that was pretty disheartening, too. If we could have dialed the car closer, I obviously could have driven it better.
When you talked about it being mine shaft times 10 and stuff, it really goes to show how finicky things can be in terms of juggling all those different challenges, in terms of getting the car just basically to hook up so that you can get it to go down the track and go fast. But then you combine it with the speeds that we're talking about and the ETs that are out there. And then on top of that, you add the element of the bracket where you have to guess at how fast it's going to go, and you got to make sure that your calculations are right. There's a lot going on in a short amount of time, especially when you put in the challenges of the weather.
Right. And we were in between the semifinals and the final. We had an NHRA official in our pit kind of like, hey, we need to get you back up there. So it wasn't really a lot of time to mess with stuff or anything like that, short of, throwing a couple of 50-pound bags of potatoes in the car someplace to slow it down. Crew Chief Pro was telling me that, yes, this is what you're going to run. Now I got to figure out how to drive that at the top end and still take the stripe. So,
right.
Yeah, I tried. I took 18 at the stripe. And I know that sounds like a lot, but depending on the mile an hour and stuff that you're going, it's one of those things. I really thought I knocked off enough.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's
599.5 comes up on the board.
Yeah, and I will say that's really tough when you're bracket racing. It really stinks when you, like you said, when you think you kill enough and you go through and still break out. You're like, what the heck? I thought I was fine, right? I ripped it 3 times at the top end and figured that was plenty, and who knew I had to do it one more time to be safe? And
well, and we all know that the more that we do it, and I didn't have any experience trying to knock that much off. We're talking 4.5, almost 500,
right?
Just because we don't dial that way. So I didn't have anything to pull out of the Rolodex in my brain other than trying to tighten it up at the top end. But, man, I knew when I launched that, okay, it's going to run a number. You better be ready to do something past the 1,000 foot. So
that's
now,
interesting.
What does NHRA do in a situation like that, or PDRA, I guess, for that matter, when you run under what the minimum is? So let's assume that you went 599.5 and you broke out by 5 thousandths. If your competitor breaks out by 100th, are you still the winner even though you went under that absolute minimum dial?
Correct. That's what happened in the semifinal last year when I ran the 598, and the gentleman that I was running, he broke out quite a bit more than his dial in.
Yep.
So I was closer. You kind of throw out the whole thing and don't worry about it. And I've heard some rumors about getting scolded for going under 6 flat just because of the chassis tag. I don't know a whole lot about it. I haven't had any issues with it. But like I said, we're gonna slow the car down because I want to be able to, if I want to dial a 605 or I want to dial a 610,
right,
and we have mine shaft conditions times 10, then we'll be comfortable with it. So
right.
I don't care if we're running 615. That's fine.
Yeah, that's still darn fast, and it's not like you're going to be giving up a lot by slowing it down a tenth or a tenth and a half, right?
Absolutely. We want to be able to dial the car because at the end of the day, that's what the game is in Top Dragster, Top Sportsman, etc.
And I forget who, Chris and I were talking to somebody, another guest recently, and it really is incredible. Kathy, you've been doing this a long time like I have, and it's like if you would have told me, 30 years ago that people were going to be bracket racing cars that went 6 flat and the quarter mile, I would have said you're out of your mind.
Wait.
Me too, absolutely. Oh, yes.
Tell her what you told me about the quarter versus the eighth.
Oh, I said to him when we saw you go 188 in the eighth, I said, Chris is like, wow, that's fast. I'm like, yeah, that's 50 miles an hour faster than I go in the quarter mile.
But you know what? I will go out there and race my Suburban as long as I get to race.
I'm with you.
Now you're talking. Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've raced a whole bunch of cars. My old Plymouth Acclaim, I raced that. Racing is racing, and it's fun regardless. But it is fun.
Yeah.
The ride is fun too. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yes, and that 378 3 pass which we love to. I love to watch the in-car shot on that one just because of the way it carried the wheels out. And that ride was just something else, and I'm hoping to have something like that again tomorrow.
Well, we'll cross our fingers. Now, earlier I thought you said that you were running. Did you start running the ProCharger when you were running Super Comp and Quick Rod?
No, Kevin was. When Kevin was still racing and we had the two cars, I was still doing the Super Comp Quick Rod stuff.
Yeah.
Then he got rid of the nitrous stuff. We tried some things and got rid of the nitrous stuff and went with the ProCharger. He ran it 12, 13, and 14. We sold his car, built a brand new American at that time for me. He stepped out. I ran my Super Comp car for a few races that next season, so that was kind of cool. It's my first time I ever had. I felt fancy. I had two cars to race. I know people do it all the time, but it was like, woo! Anyway, so, to have the opportunity to do that, and then we finally got rid of that one and concentrated just on this one with the Pro. So the only time I've ever been in Top Dragster or had a ProCharger is together.
Now, how did the ProCharger work in Super Comp? Was it the same?
That I'm not. I never ran it in Super Comp.
But did Kevin?
No, Kevin ran Top Dragster.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. I got you. All right. I was thinking that he was running Super Comp with it, too, because I was like, because I don't know. There's probably got to be somebody out there that's running the ProCharger on a Super Comp car.
I'm sure there is.
But
everybody's doing something of some kind. There's some odd combinations out there that people make work. Hey, people make them work. It's how we learn things. Somebody tries something.
Right. And then we all have to copy.
Yes. We let someone else do all the work, spend the thousands and thousands of dollars. Oh, okay, I'll do that.
Right. Now, the switching from the F2 to the F3 ProCharger, I'm assuming that was done to make more power?
It was done for a couple of reasons. The one, yes, we wanted to have a little more power. There's nothing wrong with the F2.
Yep.
But it was an older model.
Yep.
It wasn't necessarily. We were doing extremely well with it. Matter of fact, probably a little better with it than what it had originally been built for. So just for reliability,
yep,
for getting the weight in the center of the car. Not that there's anything wrong, because a lot of people are doing a lot of things with the side slinger stuff.
Yep.
But just to have the weight in the center of the car. We didn't have a belt anymore. A little more reliability. Yes, we can do more with it. Changing the gears. I mean, we're running this thing so relatively easy in what it's capable of that it's awesome. And that's really what's great about it, is we're not on the edge with this thing.
What's the displacement of that motor?
547.
It's interesting. Some of the different engine combinations that we hear about in our conversations. You referenced this car being a mini version of some of its beefier cousins, and one of the other conversations that we had before the show started is how small the spoiler is versus some of the other dragster types that people are probably more mainstream familiar with. They have that gigantic wing on the back because they have to generate so much downforce, and your car is actually faster, having a lower profile, moving through the air by pulling that wing down closer to the back tires, which was one of the other interesting things. And then Jason had made an observation that at one point the car was running with no spoiler at all.
Well, that was somebody else's.
These cars can run with no spoiler at all at this level, which it just kind of defied my logic, because I thought it was so far up and we were generating so much power off the line that you would have to have something back there to keep the back end.
I don't know that I would want to run the car without a spoiler, but
well, here's the thing. I have seen there is a particular model of dragster, or brand, I should say, of dragster from a certain chassis builder, and it's more so out west. I haven't really seen them on our side of the country. but they don't run a wing. But what they do have are almost like the big fenders over the rear tires. So that must be considered this so much because according to the rules, you run a certain mile an hour, you've got to have a rear wing and so many square inches. So to run over 200 miles an hour. So that somehow, and I'm not familiar enough with it, but they don't run a wing, but they do run the big covers over the rear tires.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so that must fit the rules somehow as a downforce generator. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I had mentioned to Chris that I don't know if it was last weekend or the week before, but I was watching something on Motor Mania TV, and they were doing a broadcast, and somebody had taken the wing off of their car. They still had the struts there, the support struts there, but the wing element itself was gone, and the car looked really funny just running with the support element on the car. But, I told Chris, it's like, the reason why they did it is because they found out that, the car actually probably goes faster without the wing than with it, so...
Right, but you definitely, don't want to feel it start trying to search for traction at the top end.
Nope.
No, and the way the wing worked out on our car, it was when the car was built, there were some things that were going on. This particular car comes with a taller wing.
Okay.
But there were some things going on with some carbon fiber and different stuff like that. It's like, okay, and when we put it on the car, it's like, well, that looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
But then when you don't have a scoop and everything's lower profile, the more I looked at it, I'm like, well, the more that makes sense.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't want the one that comes with this car. This is the one that we're going to put on it and leave it there. And I'm going to knock on wood. It has been amazing, and it's great on this car.
Now, from, I guess, just an overall downforce standpoint, have you ever lost the wing or run without it where you can, or I guess adjusted the wing where you could definitely feel the difference?
Kevin has, added a little more angle. Now, that was, the first year when we were learning everything about how this car works, because this isn't a suspended car per se. I mean, it's floater rear end, and the way American builds this thing is just awesome. I mean, it just flat works.
Yep.
So we played a little bit with different degrees in the wing, and then once we found out where it was happy, we just haven't touched it.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that, right? It works, and the car works well, and yeah, you're done. Just stop screwing with it.
Right. And wings don't, and don't hold me to this, but wings don't come in. That's why we don't see a lot of super comp cars running them. Wings don't even really come into play until once you get above a certain mile an hour anyway.
Right,
so, in the eighth mile, I know it's helping me closer to the eighth mile. Probably as we get a little closer to the mile an hour cone, it's probably helping me there. It's definitely helping down track.
Yeah. Now, I was looking, and I had thought, were you involved in an accident last year?
No. That would have been 2010, and
really?
that was in Super Comp.
It's amazing to me that it was that long ago, because I was looking online. I'm like, why can't I find it? I was sure that it was, and I guess this is what happens when you get old. It's the time flies thing. But yeah, it was just incredible.
It's one of the things, and I can't remember the other.
Yeah, it really is. The only one that I found was from 2010. And I'm like, it couldn't possibly have been from 2010.
That was it, and we're gonna. Hopefully, that was the only. And it was more of avoiding a mishap than anything. And it was just something happened to the gentleman in the other lane.
Right.
And the next thing you know, he was in my lane. This was past the finish line, and I moved over to avoid him. But then he comes back over, and it was just. Yeah, so we were back out racing again at our very next race. All we had to do was cut the cage off and just put a new cage on it. And other than that, the car was fine because it just laid over. But it was more avoiding an accident than anything.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that was kind of how I remembered it. How I remembered it was that it was a two-car accident, which is generally pretty rare in the sportsman categories. I mean, usually you might have one person that crashes, but it's pretty rare that both cars crash. But yeah, and that was why I was looking for it, because I'm like, that's definitely a unique situation when both cars are involved.
Yes, and luckily we never touched, and that was the whole thing. I kept trying to avoid him, and then I finally got into some of his stuff, when after he had come back into his lane, which was where I was, and then of course the car just kind of rolls over, and I'm like, okay, I'm going for a little ride. We're just going to lay her over and be halfway on our side, and then we're going to try to climb out. And I still have the helmet that has the little scrapes on it, and that's my memory, and I don't want any more.
Yeah,
right. But stuff happens, and it was just something that broke or whatever, and the gentleman that was in the other lane I respect the heck out of him and their entire program, and something just broke. I mean,
yeah,
we ask these parts to do a lot of things for us, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's a racing accident and stuff happens sometimes, and it's unfortunate, but yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, it's the way it goes.
Right. It wasn't that somebody overdrove or did anything stupid or anything like that, and it was just something broke. So you're going to have that. That's why we build these cars the best that we can and wear all of our safety equipment the way we were supposed to and go from there. And don't get me started on that because I'm a big stickler on that stuff.
You just jogged my memory a little bit as you were talking there, and we were talking about when you said that you asked these parts to do a lot of things that a lot of high demand performance out of them, and at the same time, a little bit earlier, we were talking about how you're not taxing the motor quite so hard when you're coming off the line, and also almost taking a little bit easy on the power plant, especially with it running without any water. What's your maintenance schedule like? I mean, compared to somebody who's running a lower division, what do you have to do in terms of maintaining that motor? How often does it have to come apart through the course of a summer? Is it high maintenance, or is that part of the reason why you're not turning it so hard?
Well, and that's, yes. One, we're not turning it so hard because we're obviously really close to our numbers as quick as we can go. Mm-hmm. But we take the motor out halfway through, as close to halfway through the season as we can. We try to take a little bit of a summer break, take it out, get it back to Ohio crankshaft. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but just to have them go through it, see if what we're doing is working, how do the bearings look, blah, 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 just go through everything, put her back together, and then run the rest of the season. It's not because it necessarily needs anything, which we've been fortunate about that,
sure,
but just to kind of keep an eye on it. But we change the oil every race, and we stay on top of doing the valves. We're constantly on that, making sure that we keep the heads torqued, just things like that. So nothing major. We're not coming back and, tearing stuff down or doing anything like that. So that's part of what's really cool about the ProCharger program.
Right.
So that's, pretty routine maintenance if you have a good maintenance program for a Sportsman car. I do know there's plenty of guys out there that don't do any maintenance from 1 week to the next. But no, I'm pretty good, actually. Yeah. I will say that I generally do the valves on my car probably every other race. So let's call it every 8 to 10 runs I run through the valves.
Hey, that's pretty good. But see, doing that kind of thing, you can catch something.
Oh,
you can see if there might be an issue coming up or whatever, or you can be, all right, hey, at least it should have been fine when we took her up to the line.
Yep, that's absolutely right. It amazes me, honestly, the number of people that will basically just run their car and, until something breaks, they don't touch it. I guess I'm too much of a worrywart to do that.
You're too late. If you're waiting until something breaks, that's such a gamble. That one thing that breaks, it might not be as simple as a spring inside.
Oh, absolutely.
It could go way worse, quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen some of those things happen throughout my lifetime, and luckily not to us.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that those types of little issues can compound. So, yeah, you lose a lash cap, and next thing you know, you're dropping a valve, and the whole reason it happened is because the stupid lash cap came off. And it's a lot easier to find it when the lash cap's just laying on the head.
Yes, just to take 45 minutes to an hour or whatever, and have yourself an adult beverage and run through the valves while the motor's still warm and that type of thing, and just other stuff. So we try to stay on top of it, because even if you have all of the best of everything, stuff can still happen.
Right. Yep. Now, so Kevin's not actively driving at this point anymore. You're really concentrating just on your program?
that's correct. There were a few reasons that we made the change. One, the new car was going to be a little more of an investment to get the newer technology to get what we wanted. Not that we had, pieces of dog do
right.
cars by any means, but we wanted to go this route. We wanted to concentrate on it. Kevin wanted to step out of the car just to kind of be the eyes and ears where he could really see what this thing was doing. And for just reason number 3, I weigh a lot less than he does. So when I'm 100 to a little over 100 pounds less than him, well, heck, there's a 10th right there.
Right,
so.
That's right. And I can understand. I mean, I've done both. I've been, the crew chief, if you will, on the car, and I've driven obviously quite a bit too. And if I'm an integral part of a racing team, I have just as much fun, being the crew chief as I do sitting in the seat. So, I could certainly see being more than willing to step aside and say, hey, let's really try and concentrate on one car and go out and do really well in one car.
Yes, because when I don't know how some of these multi-car teams do it, where they have 3 or 4 drivers and everybody's driving 2 cars. I mean, it's just wow. Talk about maintenance.
Oh well, yeah.
It's just that's mind-boggling to think what they must go through to get ready for the beginning of the season. It's enough just for us.
Right.
With the one car, there's so many things, and you are afraid you're going to forget something. But back to what you were saying about Kevin, don't get me wrong. Trust me, he wants back in the stinking car. If he sends me one more picture of a top Sportsman car, either by text, Facebook message, email, or just walking in the kitchen and showing me his phone, I think I'm going to throw up. Yeah, trust me. I'm like, sure, hon, go win the lottery, and I'll buy you that one and another one. So.
Now, I mean, you've been running a dragster for quite a while. Have you always run a dragster?
I grew up with door cars, and I wanted to go to Frank Hawley's drag racing school and get my super gas license. But I was talked into, go for the dragster, try it out. Well, then I fell in love with it, and it just kind of went from there. And it was easier to haul 2 dragsters once, when Kevin and I were first together than it was. I have nothing against door cars at all. Trust me, I would love to have a top Sportsman car myself, which is probably one of the reasons why Kevin doesn't have one, because then I would want it. So, but no, I mean, I love all the cars. The only car that I would probably have an issue and some things to get over would be a funny car.
I knew where you were going.
And that's just the one. There's extra special things that you mentally need to overcome,
right,
to be in a car like that.
Yeah, and like yourself, I've told other people if you've gone a lot faster than I have, so maybe you would consider it more than I would. But if John Force came up to me and said, you have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you do not take this, you can never do it the rest of your life. I'm going to have you jump in my funny car and make a pass. Do you do it? My answer is no. That is just too scary for me. Now, Top Fuel Dragster, I mean, it would still be scary, but a Top Fuel Dragster I would probably do. But a funny car,
right.
Yeah, that's not without making test passes. I'm not hopping in a fuel funny car and going down the track. No way.
Well, here's how you do it, though. You got to think of it this way. So you got that opportunity. Once you're in the car, you can at least do a burnout and a launch and say your fun meter got pegged.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoops, sorry. You could be like, sure, I'll make a full pass in it.
Right.
But then just at least do a burnout and a squirt and be like, oh, I'm sorry, that was too much.
Right. I never thought of that. So, all right. So, John Force, if you're listening.
There you go. See, that's the way you handle it. Oh, well, now we told everybody.
That,
so now
right.
We do it now. All right.
Yeah. So I was curious with the door car. Was have you guys or have you considered? I guess potentially switching to Top Sportsman. I
would love to. I mean, I have no problem racing anything. Sportsman-wise, definitely.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
no, I mean, it would be great, and I would love to have both. And it's just, it hasn't been in the cards, and it's just, most of the top Sportsman cars we look at, oh yeah, we want we want all those top Sportsman cars.
Right.
And I mean, like I think you know what I'm getting at. So
yeah.
I'm not saying that it is cheaper to run a Dragster.
Right.
Even though the car that I have is an amazing piece, and it took us selling 2 other cars to get this one.
Yep.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Well worth it. This thing is badass, and I would buy it again in a heartbeat. But yeah, I have expensive taste, so most of the cars I'm looking at right now that are all in the pro pits for the PDRA would be something I would want to run in Top Sportsman.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I get it. They're nice pieces. I mean, the other thing you got to remember too is that you're going pretty fast, and when you're going those speeds, you don't want to be driving something that you don't feel safe and comfortable in, right?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yeah. Back to the safety thing again. Yeah, because myself, I wouldn't drive it as well if I wasn't comfortable in it. You got to be comfortable, so that way that's not in your mind, because you got to leave that all behind, and you got to trust that car and everything that's been done to that car and how it was built and so on, because you're taking it down the track, and plus there's somebody next to you 30 feet away. Hopefully they're 30 feet away.
Right. That's right. Now, I noticed that you had this came up earlier in before the show as well, and I got to get the nomenclature right. Really stupid fast girls.
Yes. Are you familiar with Stupid Fast Racing?
I am not.
Stupid Fast Racing is a really fun clothing line that has been around for quite some time. As a matter of fact, they backed Frankie Taylor for quite some time, the Madman, and several others. It's a really fun clothing line, I should say apparel line. It's so hats and all of that stuff that is spreading out into other lines. So it's going to be coming out soon. We're just getting started with it small right now, and I cannot wait. If some of the things that they come out with for the ladies is going to be anything like the really stupid fast racing that they have for the guys, which they have some lady stuff too. It's just a lot of tongue-in-cheek, some really fun stuff.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, Chris was asking me, he's like, what is this? And I'm like, I don't know. We're going to have to ask Kathy, because I had no idea.
No, and that's fine, because it's like I said, it's just getting started, so it's just going to be brand building for a little while, and as more things start to roll off the assembly line, so to speak. Yeah,
that's very cool. And
so the other hat that you wear on top of apparel guru and driver and all the stuff that you got going on with the race team, you also appear on television as well.
Yes, and that kind of stemmed from being in radio for a bazillion years, and actually got started with the IHRA and doing the 2003 Hooters series on Speed, if everybody remembers that channel, before it changed to Fox Sports 1. So that's kind of one blended into the other, and kind of do the TV thing. For Masters Entertainment's the main company that I've worked for. So right now it's, matter of fact, Monday, as soon as I'm done with the race, and Mother Nature better not poo-poo on us here, because I need to get to the studio, and I'll be shooting all next week.
And what are you going to be doing? What's next week?
Next week, we are still the Performance TV show that's on Velocity Channel. When we shoot in the studio, we'll shoot for like 3 days in a row. We will do some on-location shoots, but we mainly shoot in the studio in Tennessee. And so we'll be shooting a bunch of, different stuff and learning about new products and installing stuff and tips on things and that type of stuff. My co-host for the second year in a row now is Joe Costello, which is one of the NHRA announcers, and of course with his WFO radio.
Okay, all right. So you're doing Performance TV now. At one point in time, I don't think it's on the air anymore, you were on Inside Drag Racing as well, correct?
I got to do a few, I got to do a few of those episodes. And those were few and far between, unfortunately. That was something I always wanted to do because of, Ted Jones and Brett Kepner and just all of the people that I really looked up to. I just didn't get an opportunity to do a ton of those.
Right, okay. And then you had mentioned earlier, Married with Dragsters, you did that.
Yes, and that was something that that Kevin and I did completely in-house. So it was having the crew guy, grab the camera, or me or Kevin, and then we would put all of our stuff together, and then it would take me 2.5 days to edit it.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because people see videos and people have never put together a video and edited a video. Don't realize how much time goes into doing that.
Sucks.
If you're trying to tell a story, and if for some reason it's like, okay, this is great, I've got all the on-track stuff, but either you lost something or we didn't pick up the camera when we got back to the pit to explain the story, well, then you lost the story. Well, woohoo, you can watch the car go down the track. That's interesting to a point. So, so then I would get really frustrated trying to tell the story of our weekend and do it within 30 minutes.
Right. Now, I thought there was one other TV show that you worked on as well.
I did, World of Trucks. I did that one. That was on the Outdoor Channel. Oh, my gosh, the Mother's Car Show, the Low Car Show. Most recently, Bidding Wars, which was on CBS Sports.
Oh.
And what else did I do last year? Oh, the Menard Chevy series.
Oh, okay. Now, and how did this all come about? Did somebody just approach you one day and ask you, hey, you want to give this a try?
Well, it really started with the IHRA stuff, and Kevin and I were at our local pizza joint, having some adult beverages, blah, 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 talking. I'm like, IHRA really should have a female pit reporter.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it'd be great. So the more we had imbibed and stuff, the better it sounded. So we went over to a friend's house because our cars weren't together at that time. And like I said, this was actually the end of 2002.
Yep.
And I didn't even have a Dragster license yet. So went over to a friend's house. We shot some video with my fake microphone and blah, 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 and we sent it up to Bill Bader. And the next thing you know, I got to be the pit reporter that year. And
No
I
kidding.
used to have to take vacation from Clear Channel Radio to go work for Clear Channel Motorsports. And after I did that, I fell in love with – I'm trying to tell two stories at once. I fell in love with chasing points and traveling the country because at that point in time, Kevin and I were just going to our local track, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I was ready for that next step. So it was a bittersweet thing when I stepped away from TV after 1 year to start working on putting together something so we could go out and run the IHRA series.
Right.
And then I missed it and missed going out and doing stuff, so I put together a few of my things that I did for IHRA. I sent them to Ted Jones, who I'd known. I didn't think he would remember me, but I knew him when I was really little. My dad used to run his tracks when he had a bunch of them in Ohio and Indiana. And the next thing you know, in 2006, I started working for Masters Entertainment, and I've got to do a lot of really cool things since then.
Wow.
So that was the short version of how it all went down.
And something the thing is in my travels outside of drag racing, just as a whole, there's so many people that are just infinitely jealous of that story right there because they've put all this time and effort into refining their craft and going to school for it and everything, and it just happened to be that you were in the perfect place and had the right voice or said the right things to the right people, and it snowballed into this completely secondary completely second career that's still involved in the sport, that's still involved in being active. It allows you to still race the car and stuff, but this completely different personality and this other twist. And it just goes to show that you can't learn it. If you're good on a microphone, you're good, and if you're not, you're not. It's just the way it is.
Trust me, there are so many people that just blow me away. You know what? To me, one of the hardest things to do is to be a track announcer. And
Patrick.
I tried it one time. It was at Rockingham, 2016. 2016 at Rockingham. I was helping Lee Sebring out, and because he needed a break. The boy needed to get out of the tower and take a break. So I didn't realize I knew it was hard, but it was very hard when you get thrown into it. And, people are telling you to say this and, hey, call this class and do this, and you're trying to tell the story and la, 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 and it takes a while to get used to doing all that. And you've got to be really good and especially able to tell the story. But back to what you were saying, it kind of stemmed from growing up with drag racing and growing up with motorsport,
being a lifer
and stuff like that, and being in love with broadcasting.
Right.
So it just kind of, the two came together, which was cool. And no, I didn't go to school for it, didn't go to college or anything like that, but I had a lot of background from my 15 years in radio that helped.
Awesome.
That definitely helped that.
You know what I like hearing, though, in the midst of that conversation, too, is you said how important, how difficult and how important it is as a track announcer, not just to tell a story, but also to conduct traffic. It's a lot like the conductor on a train, and you've got a lot of different duties holding onto that microphone at the track announcer level, and it's not an easy job at all.
No, it's not.
And, so many people say, well, it doesn't matter what you say anyway, because nobody in the grandstands is listening to you. The issue is they may not be, but the people that told you to talk into that microphone are, and when they're telling you to announce things and you're not doing it well or you're not doing it right, they still hear it.
Yeah.
But nowadays with all of the different streaming, opportunities that we have with this race and a lot of the other races, and with All Access, more and more people are hearing the track announcer. So it's even more of an entertaining job, along with directing traffic, like you said. And they've got so much going on up there. It's mind-boggling.
Well, and
people haven't.
And I would say, I will add that a good track announcer really makes the show. When you listen to the guys out there that are really good, they make it, whether it's exciting or not, they make it sound exciting, and they make me want to tune in and watch or find out, hey, geez, what the heck is going on? It's like, do you hear the announcer? He's going nuts. I got to go see or hear what is going on here. And that's what good track announcers can do, that, or differentiate just from the mediocre track announcers, if you will. And there are some really good personalities out there right now that have that ability, that get really excited when guys are going down the track, that make me want to watch.
A good track announcer can make a race where one of the cars breaks, can still get you on your feet, and make you feel heartbreak for the guy that broke.
That's right. Yep. Yeah.
Yes, and they have to. The track announcers are also having to consider the different level of fan they have. They have the people that are there for their very first time, and they're trying to pull them in and entertain them, and stick that hook in them, so to speak. But they're also trying to talk to people like us and tell the full story. Like, I don't want to hear blah, blah, the lane, whatever. No, I want to hear the person that won or lost. If I can be back in the pit and not even looking at the track, but yet I know exactly what happened, and I can see it, and it's theater of the mind, they did an amazing job. They did their job. That's great. Now, when you were on the radio, were you just a normal radio DJ, or what were you doing for the radio? Oh, okay. Let me try to tell this one quick. Okay. I started at a AM/FM radio station in Lima, Ohio. Yeah. And worked my way up. The station was eventually sold off to J-Core, which then Clear Channel came along and absorbed J-Core. Now there were new opportunities for me. So this went on for a few years. I started voice tracking other markets, everything from Lexington, Kentucky to Grand Cayman. I had to learn to say Cayman, not Cayman. But Grand Cayman Island in Georgetown, to Mason City, Iowa, Montgomery, Alabama. Excuse me. So I was voice tracking like 11 different stations a day. I had different names. They were different formats. And instead of them paying a body, they were saving the stations a lot of money, but I was making a lot. So I did that for quite a few years. And, I would come home at the end of the day. I wouldn't have a voice left. But I was also I was music director and program director, and you name it. I was in sales. I wore all the hats except for management. I mean, like upper management. Yeah, well,
I have to say it's interesting. I mean, honestly, Kathy, I didn't know that you had a career in radio. I mean, I knew about the TV stuff and obviously all the drag racing stuff, but I wasn't aware of the radio. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's how I got started. So I did everything backwards. When I was young and thin, I was in radio. And then when I get older and heavier, I'm in television, so it's completely backwards.
I mean, it's the old, he's got a face for radio, right? That's me.
Yes.
The problem is there's a camera in front of you.
I'm I'm in my 20s, 20s and early 30s, and I'm doing the radio stuff, and and then it goes backwards. So anyway, but it's just the way it worked out for me. Maybe I can still go back into radio someday when the TV stuff stops.
Well, I'm sure there's probably still some doors open for you if you wanted to go back there. That's interesting.
Yeah. If there's like 3 people listening or something like that, sure.
Satellite radio. Got to
So
go that
now,
route.
I would say now changes this year marketing-wise. You said you brought on some new partners for the racing team this year?
Yes, and of course we touched a little bit on the really stupid fast girls, which I cannot wait for this to get started. I mean, we're a little bit behind on getting some of the marketing and stuff done, but once we really hit on that, it's going to be cool. Little Power Shop is another one that's new to us this year, but I've known John Anderson for quite a few years. Little Power Shop is based out of Pennsylvania, and they know diesels. If your Duramax or Cummins or Power Stroke, they're hilarious and they're as funny as they are good at their stuff. Not only, if you want to build something mild to wild or whatever for your daily driver, for your tow vehicle, like what we used to have, and we would tow our 53-foot trailer with our dually, they would know exactly what to do with it. I mean, these guys are just amazing. Think one of the big mail order type places, as we say mail order, but think big mail order, only it's just for diesel.
Yeah, cool.
So, these guys are really cool and really know what they're doing. Of course, if somebody would live close to them, they dynos and all kinds of stuff, and they do work on stuff there. But, their website's pretty cool, and John has such a great sense of humor. So I'm pretty excited that they came on board this year. Lucas Oil is new to us this year, and we're also representing them at all of the PDRA races. So we have our Lucas Oil display set up if anybody needs any product. We've got that, since Lucas Oil is tied in with Top Dragster for the PDRA. It just makes sense that Lucas Oil would be available at all of the events.
Yep, absolutely.
So that was something new for us this year as well.
Oh, that's very cool. And I mean, I know Dwayne LaFleur, who's with Lucas Oil. I don't know if you work with Dwayne or not, but they make some really great products, and obviously have been a huge supporter of the Sportsman racing series across the United States over the last decade plus. And certainly I would encourage everybody out there to support the Lucas Oil family, I guess, if you will. They've supported us, and they make a great product. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. So
their ProCharger oil is the best in the game.
Not only that, but their contingency program is pretty cool. Now, that we're still working on hoping to have a contingency program for PDRA in the coming years. But look at what they're doing over on the NHRA side. It's a very simple program. You get paid at the track when you win, like the national event stuff, which is really neat. When does that happen?
Oh, that's unheard of. Yeah, that's unheard of. Yeah, usually.
I know, I appreciate every single company that has a contingency program, because they're not always easy to run, just from a bookkeeping standpoint and just following up on everything. But man, to pay right there at the track, that's just going another step ahead, just like that company does.
Right. Now, in addition, you also have Performance by Fisher, right? So, I mean, when you guys aren't on TV, you're not racing, you're not doing everything else, you have your own business as well, correct?
Yes, and it's complete automotive repair. We do some high-performance things. I mean, Kevin does everything from build some engines to setting up rear ends, but we specialize in custom exhaust. And that's pretty much how Kevin got his start. He's had the business for 26 years, and then when I came along, then I aggravated him and I got involved with it because I've got to be involved with it. So I do all of the behind the scenes stuff, everything from the advertising to the taxes to the payroll, keeping the government happy, all of that stuff. So I had to make sure that everybody was happy before I came to the race.
The life of a sportsman racer. It's all glamour and glory, and I remember. I mean, it's funny because being a sportsman racer, like I said, you got to make sure everybody's happy. You're typically driving to the track. You're either taking vacation days or you're driving after work late at night. It's not all the, like I said, it's not all the glamour that everybody makes it out to be when you're a sportsman racer, for sure. You're doing it because you love it.
Absolutely, and we get to go out from the time we fire the car up to the time we pull off the top end of the track. It averages anywhere between, 2.5 minutes.
Yep.
Wow.
Or something like that. So outside of that, it's the family, it's the friends, it's the traveling circus, so to speak.
That's right.
We set up our tents, we set up our pit areas, and I cannot imagine doing anything else. I mean, I was so stinking excited to get to this race because there's people I haven't seen since either PRI or SEMA or the last event of the year last year that I'm just busting to get out on the golf cart and go find them.
Well, before we let you go and go visit, is there anybody that we haven't, anything we haven't touched on, or anybody that we haven't mentioned that you want to mention before we let you go?
Very quickly, Armor Coat Ceramic Header Coating. We've been involved with these folks. They're just down the road from us, about 40 minutes away in Piqua, Ohio. They powder coat all of our things. I mean, that's one of their big things that they do. But Armor Coat Ceramic Header Coating, Borla Exhaust, Mickey Thompson. You can have all the power in the world, but you can't stick it to the track.
Right.
So Mickey Thompson, Abruzzi has been amazing to us over the years. We're also with Sunoco. Aeromotive has stepped up with us a little bit this year, and we're using a little bit different fuel pump than we had been the past couple of years, but we were very successful with. So thank you to all of those people. Thank you to you two for having me on the show tonight. Sure. I greatly appreciate it, and hopefully I didn't ramble too much.
No, not at all. We'll check in again through the course of the summer and find out how the year's going.
Absolutely. You guys message me anytime. I would be glad to come back on again.
We're going to hold you to that.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, you got it. Oh, and yes, and hopefully you guys can at least say, go Dragoness this weekend. Okay.
We sure will.
Yeah.
Jason, go for
it. Go Dragoness!
Just remember, that's the car. I just get to drive her. Okay.
We'll duly noted. We'll make sure we don't make that mistake again.
All right, guys. I didn't smack you too hard. All right.
No, we'll take it. We understand.
Thank you so much, guys.
We appreciate it. Thanks a ton.
Thanks, Kathy. Good luck this weekend.
We'll see ya.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.
There goes Kathy Fisher, the driver of the Dragoness.
Yes. Not the Dragoness, but I mean, that's not our fault. I heard announcers calling her the Dragoness as well, so.
They got slapped harder than we did.
Did they?
Judging by the way she finished that, I'm confident so.
Okay, all right. But yes, the driver of the Dragoness for sure. But yeah, awesome. I have to say I'm jealous. She's out at the track racing.
You can hear the cars passing through every now and every so often.
Yeah. Down at Galat. I have not been to Galat, no. But yeah, I've heard it's a great track, and I'm sure it's going to be really fun this weekend down there for sure. I wish I was down there.
Bags.
Yeah, well, probably not this weekend, but yeah, wish I was down there for sure, especially with the cruddy weather that we've had here on April 5th.
Yeah,
for God's sakes.
We had not measurable snow, but there was still accumulated snow on the cars this morning.
Yeah.
I was not impressed.
It's pretty hard to imagine that, we're supposed to be out at the track in 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
I just don't know how that's going to happen, but whatever.
Fingers crossed, right?
Right.
What do you think? We covered all?
I think so. I think we did a pretty good job trying to keep it to an hour, if you will. Kathy kept us entertained, and I knew we wouldn't even get a chance to talk about, real racing history or anything else, but that's why we have her back later on. We will. We'll have more to talk about then, because by then she'll have some races in. That's right.
And the TV show will be airing, and episodes will be out and everything like that. So, yeah, we'll have plenty to hit on. But I think that's going to do it for us here at the North Park Building at Academy Square. Wrapping up this episode number 37 of the Fire on Drag Racing podcast. Thanks so much to Kathy Fisher making time to come and hang out with us for a little while. We'll have to make sure that we make it a point to do it again. That is going to do it again for us here. Appreciate all the folks that tuned in. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.